You might already have strong, successful examples prepared for your interview, but are they actually HEO or SEO level examples? Welcome to this explainer. If you're targeting a higher or senior executive officer role, what the civil service calls level 3, you are about to make one of the most absolutely crucial leaps in your career. But moving up isn't simply about having a more impressive job title or suddenly managing a bigger project. It's a fundamental shift in the level of judgment, ownership, complexity, and impact you can demonstrate. Today, we're going to break down the level 3 behaviors and demystify exactly what assessors are really looking for.
So think about those examples you've been working on. Here is the critical question you need to ask yourself. Are they genuinely HEO or SEO level, or are they just level 2 executive officer examples sort of dressed up in a tuxedo with slightly more impressive language? Because assessors are scanning for a very specific type of evidence, and we want to make sure you have it. To really understand what they're looking for, we have to look at the core mentality shift. At the EO level, the baseline expectation is basically, I took ownership and I delivered. And hey, that's fantastic. But at level 3, that simply isn't enough anymore. At HEO and SEO levels, your underlying message needs to be, I used judgment, managed complexity, influenced others, and delivered wider outcomes. It's way less about the specific task itself and entirely about how you navigated the complex, messy landscape around that task. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the level 3 shift, then look at vision and decision-making, change and leadership, influencing and working together, and finally, demonstrating your impact. Starting with Section 1, the level 3 shift, moving from delivery to judgment. Take a look at the official Civil Service Behaviours framework for level 3. This is the recruiter's actual rubric. Notice how across all these categories, the verbs and expectations step up dramatically from level 2. You are now expected to deal with competing priorities, evaluate incomplete data, and really take personal responsibility for the wider impacts of your work. Moving up is all about a shift toward far greater autonomy. Think about it like this. An executive officer is given a problem and solves it efficiently. But a higher or senior executive officer, they identify the problem, decide if it's even the right problem to solve in the first place, gather evidence-based research to formulate options, and then persuade resistant stakeholders to actually agree to the solution. It's the complexity of the environment you are operating in that elevates an example from level 2 right up to level 3. Right, moving on to Section 2, vision and decision-making, seeing the big picture and making effective decisions. For seeing the big picture, a weak answer merely demonstrates passive awareness. Something like, I knew this project was important to the department. But a strong level 3 answer shows active alignment. You need to demonstrate that understanding the wider political, economic, or operational context directly changed the way you approached your work. Which naturally leads us to making effective decisions. This is honestly one of your absolute best opportunities to demonstrate level 3 judgment. You've got to distinguish between important evidence and just background noise. You have to consider alternative options instead of jumping to the first solution. Assess the risks, and confidently present strong recommendations. Crucially, you must also show that you know exactly when consultation or escalation is necessary. So when you're crafting your interview answers for decision-making, you must answer this specific question. Why did you make that decision, and what were the alternatives? Assessors don't just want to know what the final outcome was. They want you to lift the hood. Let them follow your exact thought process. How did you weigh the imperfect information you had? Be willing to show how you made a difficult choice. Section 3, change and leadership, driving improvement and taking ownership. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the clear boundary between the levels. At level 2, you suggest ideas. At level 3, you don't just accept an inefficient process because that's how we've always done it. You actively identify opportunities, use evidence to understand the actual root problem, involve the people affected, and explain the reasons for the change to your colleagues. You're driving the improvement, not just participating in it. And always quantify that result where possible. Time saved, errors reduced, costs cut. Let's clear up a massive misconception right now. You absolutely do not need to be a line manager to demonstrate level 3 leadership. Leadership at this level is about direction, ownership, and influence. It's about setting clear objectives, championing inclusion, and motivating others around a shared outcome. It is about taking visible, personal responsibility when things go wrong, rather than just sitting back and waiting for senior colleagues to fix it. So the filter you need to apply to all your leadership examples is this. What happened because you stepped up?
Literally, if we removed you from the example, would the team have achieved the same result anyway? Your example must highlight the specific personal impact of your intervention.
Okay, on to Section 4, influencing and working together, going beyond just communicating and teaming up. And this brilliantly illustrates the step up. Looking at the source definitions for Level 3, communicating and influencing requires identifying your audience and deliberately adapting your message to maximize impact. Working together requires establishing professional relationships across different teams and investing real time to develop genuine positive team spirit. At this level, communicating simply isn't enough. Where is the influence?
Let's look at that in practice. A weak, Level 2 style answer says, I presented my recommendation to senior leaders. Well, that's just communicating. Level 3 requires influencing. A much stronger answer says, they initially disagreed with my recommendation. I understood their concerns, adapted my argument, and used evidence to secure agreement. You know, the most interesting part of a Level 3 example is almost always the tension. Show the assessor exactly how you listened to concerns, found common ground, and literally changed someone's view, decision, or behavior.
Similarly, working together goes way beyond just saying, we worked well as a team. You need to show how you proactively built productive relationships across team boundaries, how you handled disagreements constructively, and how you supported colleagues when the pressure was on. Again, strong examples here often contain tension. You're actively engineering a collaborative, inclusive environment to achieve a shared outcome despite differing priorities.
Finally, Section 5, demonstrating your impact. Let's talk about rewriting your narrative.
I want to explicitly bust a huge myth right now. Do not confuse seniority or scale with complexity. Listen, managing 10 people on a fairly routine, straightforward task is not automatically better evidence than a situation where you use lateral leadership to influence 3 highly resistant, difficult stakeholders. Assessors at Level 3 are looking for how you handle complexity and apply sound judgment, not just the raw headcount of your team. So, the crucial point is that your examples must always bridge the gap between your situational awareness and your actual behavior. Assessors are listening for your strategic why. What did you do differently because you understood the bigger picture? How did your judgment alter the trajectory of the whole project? Ensure your examples highlight not just the final shiny result, but the friction you had to overcome to get there. Now that you've seen exactly what the Civil Service Framework expects, I have to ask, are you ready to audit your own examples? Go through them, strip away those basic delivery narratives, and rewrite them to front-load your judgment, your influence, and your ability to manage complexity. The jump to Level 3 is entirely within your reach once you know how to speak the language of impact. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep focused, get rewriting, and I know you're going to crush it.